on the day of my wedding to the man I love. I can't express how long I've been waiting for this moment. But storms can hit without warning.
I'm sorry. I'm pregnant with his child.
Surrounded by well-wishers, I was ready to pledge eternal love. On this sacred day, my own sister hit me with the cruelest revelation. Even Dad, who I thought would be on my side, defended her. Why did this happen? What have I ever done? As I was drowning in despair, things took a turn I could have never anticipated. My name is Riley, 26 years old. I work at a foreign company, just an ordinary employee. My life has been pretty mundane until now. But even someone like me met my destiny 2 years ago. His name is Thomas, 28 years old. I met Thomas at a client's company, and we're currently engaged. We started dating when Thomas made the first move. After a year and a half, he recently proposed. Thomas isn't just great at his job, he's also well respected. I was so proud to have Thomas as my fiancé. Today, I brought Thomas home for a family meeting. Having not been home for a few months, Mom, Lily, greeted us warmly.
Riley, it's been a while. To think you'd come to announce your wedding, Mom was quite surprised.
Sorry about that. Work has been hectic.
It's okay. Alexander is waiting inside.
Thanks. Where's Mary?
She's here, in her room.
I see. Honestly, I don't want to see Mary. The truth is, I've never really liked her. Mary is my older sister. Even at 30, she doesn't work. Mary has always been beautiful, and she treated others very well. Maybe because of this, people always said she was adorable and such a good girl. As a result, she grew into an uncontrollable troublemaker. But the frustrating thing is, Mary's true nature only comes out around me. In front of our parents and relatives, she plays the role of the perfect little angel. My feelings toward Mary started to sour before I even entered elementary school. Even before that, as a child, I had my grievances with her, but one incident that stands out is my 5th birthday. On that day, my parents gave me the rabbit plushie I had wanted for so long. But right after, Mary burst into tears out of the blue.
Sniff, sob. I wanted that plushie too.
But Mary, didn't you say you didn't like bunnies?
I do like them. You copied me, Riley. It's so unfair. No, that's not true. I've always loved bunnies. Liar. Riley, do you hate Mary that much?
Mary sobbed uncontrollably, making the atmosphere tense. What made things even more complicated was that Dad, Alexander, doted on Mary excessively. Whenever Mary and I had a falling out, Dad always sided with Mary. Of course, this time was no different. Dad forcefully took the rabbit plushie I was holding and handed it to Mary.
Dad, that's the one I just got. Listen, Riley. You're the younger sister. Mary comes first, so give it to her. But I've wanted that bunny for so long. We can get you another one for your birthday next year. Just bear with it this year.
Fine. Mary, hiding behind Dad, smirked at me maliciously. I can't forget the look on her face from that moment. It was as if her eyes were telling me, that's what you get. A few days later, I found the plushie that Mary had taken, dirty and discarded, in the trash. Crying, I went to Dad, but he dismissed me, saying, "You're the younger sister. Deal with it." From then on, I gave up expecting anything from my family. After that, Mary would frequently torment me, and whenever we argued, I was always painted as the bad guy. Mom always stepped in to defend me, but Dad continued to shower Mary with affection regardless. Because of Dad's incessant spoiling, Mary never held down a job and still lived a carefree life at our parents' house. She would work part-time jobs briefly, only to quit soon after, and whenever she needed money, she'd beg Dad. Each time, without reprimanding her, he'd give her an allowance. Mom grew tired of Dad's behavior and stopped intervening. Because of our past, I despised Mary and didn't want to see her. The mere thought of her causing another scene filled me with dread. Despite my anxiety, I headed to the living room with Thomas. But only Dad was sitting on the couch. Mom prepared some coffee, and the conversation shifted from casual chit-chat to talk of the wedding. As we discussed the wedding date, I heard footsteps coming down from the upstairs staircase.
Oh no. Now? I'd prefer she not meet Thomas.
But my fear quickly became a reality. Mary, wearing a revealing outfit, entered the living room. Feigning sweetness, she addressed me.
Oh my! Riley, long time no see!
Mary, we're discussing something important. Can you come back later?
What's going on? Am I being excluded from some secret conversation?
It's just about the wedding.
The wedding? So, the guy over there is your fiancé?
Mary approached Thomas, saying sweetly,
I'm Riley's sister.
With a warm smile. Thomas seemed somewhat charmed by her. Biting back my urge to shout, I stood up. In an attempt to suppress my anger, I left the living room and headed to the bathroom.
Why does it always have to be like this? Mary's always in my way. And Thomas better not be falling for her.
I took a few deep breaths to calm myself. Returning to the living room, I found Mary and Thomas deep in conversation, laughing together. Witnessing that scene, the anger I'd been suppressing surged instantly. I gathered my things and called out to Thomas.
Thomas, we're done here. Let's go home. Huh? Are we leaving already? What about the wedding plans? I'll contact Mom about it later. Can we just leave now?
All right. Alexander, Lily, Mary, it was nice seeing you all. As we tried to exit the living room, Mary ran up to Thomas.
Come back soon,
she said, flashing a big smile. It irritated me. I had told Thomas about Mary before. Yet seeing him so taken with her, I felt anger again. On the way home, I broached the topic with Thomas, trying to dispel my anger and anxiety.
Thomas, you remember what I told you about Mary, right?
Yeah, I do. But based on our chat today, she seems nice.
That's the thing. She's like that with everyone but me. Please, don't be so easily fooled.
Hey, I'm not easily swayed. The only one I love is you, Riley. I wouldn't fall for any temptations. I trust you. Yet, recalling Thomas's expression around Mary earlier, I still felt unease.
I think we should avoid visiting my family home as much as possible after we're married.
After that, we didn't discuss Mary and simply enjoyed our time together. Our wedding preparations were well underway, and I was too busy to dwell on anything else. Then, the big day arrived. My wedding dress, which I'd tried on many times and finally chosen. Makeup slightly bolder than usual, and a subtle tiara. The once-in-a-lifetime event. The day I'd long dreamed of came faster than I thought. Thomas looked tense. Of course, I felt the same nerves. But more than that, I was overwhelmed with joy that we were finally becoming husband and wife. After the ceremony, as a whirlwind of emotions engulfed me, we transitioned to the reception venue. After the groom finished his speech and the meal began. Suddenly, Mary, seated at the family table, broke down crying loudly. Everyone's attention was on her. When Dad asked her what was wrong, Mary dropped a bombshell.
I have something to apologize to Riley for. Apologize? What are you? Riley, I'm so sorry. I'm pregnant with Thomas's child. What?
I couldn't process this unexpected revelation. Yet Mary's words echoed in my mind.
What did she just say? Pregnant with Thomas's child? Mary? But Thomas is my fiancé.
I cautiously looked over at Thomas, seated next to me. His face was pale, and he was sweating, looking down. In that moment, it hit me. What Mary was saying was true. Suddenly, my vision blurred, and I couldn't control my body. Then, everything went black. How much time had passed? Coming to, I found myself lying on a sofa in the venue's waiting room. There was a slight headache. Then, Mom approached, handing me a bottle of water.
Really? Thank goodness. You're awake.
Mom, what happened? That must have been tough. To suddenly face such a situation. Yeah. With Mom's words, the reality that Mary wasn't lying about her pregnancy hit me. It seemed like Mary had managed to take something precious from me again. Oddly, I didn't feel anger, just a deep emptiness. Before I knew it, tears began to flow, and overwhelming frustration consumed me. Mom hugged me tightly, trying to console me. Riley, it's okay. It's going to be okay, all right? Don't cry. Mom, I just... Rest for now. We'll talk about everything properly later. For the next few days, I stayed somewhere else with Mom. The thought of returning to the family home with Mary or the apartment I shared with Thomas was unbearable. A few days later, I started to feel better, and my emotions began to stabilize. Upon telling this to Mom, she decided it was time to sit down and talk with Mary and Thomas at our family home. Seeing Thomas after such a long time, he looked worn out and pale. Contrasting his appearance, Mary seemed smug and triumphant. I decided to first ask Thomas about his feelings. So, what's the plan now? Well, it's quite something, getting your fiancé's sister pregnant. I'm too stunned to even blame you. I'm sorry. But I love Mary. I can't marry you, Riley. I knew this was coming, but hearing Thomas's decision still stung. Sensing my emotions, Mary had a mocking grin on her face. Trying to hold back my irritation, I confronted Mary. What do you want, Mary?
Well, isn't it obvious? I want to marry Thomas for our baby's sake. You're serious? You do know he was my fiancé, right?
So?
Even after all this, you still want to marry Thomas? That's...
Perhaps because Thomas chose her, Mary seemed certain she had no competition left. Her apologetic face at the wedding venue was nowhere to be seen, replaced with a hateful smirk. Talking further is just a waste of time. Feeling resolved, I took a deep breath to end the conversation. But Dad, who had been listening to our conversation, spoke up.
Riley, you understand, right? Dad? What are you talking about now? You've always been told to give way to your younger sister, haven't you? What's your point? Hand over Thomas to Mary. To begin with, there's a reason he cheated on you.
In that instant, something inside me snapped.
All this time, give it to the younger sister because she's younger? This is so unjust. I won't put up with it any longer. I'll get my revenge.
I planned to demand compensation from Mary and Thomas, and get a restraining order against Dad for past abuse. But before I could act, it was Mom who stepped forward. She stood before Mary and smiled gently. Mary, first off, congratulations on your pregnancy.
Thanks, Mom. This will be your first grandchild.
Grandchild? Don't make me laugh. You're no longer my daughter.
What? Mom, what are you saying? How could you stoop so low as to steal your sister's fiancé and get pregnant by him? You're no better than a monster.
Mary, hearing the stern tone from Mom, a side she'd never seen before, shrank back in fear. Dad, concerned about Mary, stepped in to intervene.
Hey, what's gotten into you? This is hard on Mary.
Hard on her? At that moment, Mom stood directly in front of Dad, gripping his shirt tightly.
Enough is enough. What on earth are you talking about? What's your deal? Why are you acting like this? How can you say it's hard on Mary? Don't you see how Riley is the one truly suffering here? Calm down. Mary isn't the only one at fault here. Riley played her part in this too.
Dad kept trying to defend Mary. But Mom had had enough. She released her grip and said,
I don't ever want to see Mary again. And we're getting a divorce. What, divorce?
Yes.
Why would I stay in a family with someone so heartless? If you understand, then please leave. But, am I joking? Absolutely not. Can't you see how much you've hurt Riley? And if you ever try to harm my precious daughter again, even if you're family, I won't hesitate to take you down. Got it?
Mom's forceful words turned Dad's face pale. And for a good reason. If he were to be kicked out, he'd have nowhere to go. Because the house, passed down from Mom's grandparents, was in her name. Dad had married into the family with wealthy landowners. But after the grandparents passed, he became more dominant, disregarding Mom's opinions. He always said, I'm the one supporting this family. Probably getting too arrogant after the grandparents' passing. He probably got arrogant after the grandparents passed away. And he completely forgot one crucial detail. The house was inherited from the grandparents and was under Mom's name. Realizing the predicament he was in, Dad knelt before Mom, repeatedly apologizing.
I was wrong. Please forgive me. I won't side with Mary again. Just don't kick me out.
But Mom was resolute. She began packing Dad's belongings. Once packed, she threw his stuff outside.
Here, sign the divorce papers and leave. I don't ever want to see your face again. But, move it. Or I'll take this to court. Gulp!
Startled by the word trial, Dad hurriedly began signing the divorce papers. He then loaded his numerous belongings into the car and left the house. Left behind in the room were Mary and my ex-fiancé, Thomas. Thomas looked overwhelmed by Mom and was trembling. How pathetic. Why did I ever consider marrying such a person? On the other hand, Mary seemed to have a smidge of arrogance left. I said to her, very clearly,
You know, I'll be expecting full compensation from you. What? Compensation? We're sisters. Excuse me? Think that matters now? You stole my fiancé. That's a fact. But I can't believe you. I don't even have a job.
Instead of apologizing, Mary was still trying to justify her actions. Seeing such a pitiful sight, I was utterly disgusted. Finally, I let loose, expressing all the resentment I'd been holding in.
Stop making excuses. Whether you work or not, I don't care. Who's to blame for all of this? It's the result of your shameless affair. And after all the trouble you've caused, you still act so self-righteous. Wait, please. I apologize. Just, please, no compensation. Sorry, so please forgive me? You think I'm a fool? Who would forgive with such a shallow apology? I've put up with your crap for years. But enough is enough. Being related to someone like you is just embarrassing. Got it? I won't show any mercy. No matter how much you cry or beg, I'll come after you with everything I've got.
Mary broke down, begging and pleading. But of course, forgiveness wasn't an option. Like Dad, Mom packed up Mary's stuff and threw it outside. When Mary and Thomas were reluctant to leave, Mom and I forcibly evicted them. After that, Mom and Dad divorced. My engagement with Thomas was called off. I hired a lawyer and demanded compensation from Mary and Thomas. For Thomas, I required that he cover all the wedding expenses. Mary went into debt, and Thomas exhausted all his savings to pay the compensation. But word of Thomas's affair spread throughout his company, as colleagues were present at the ceremony. Consequently, he was shunned and, unable to bear the humiliation, he resigned. I wonder what kind of life awaits the unemployed couple, especially with a baby on the way. I don't wish ill on others, but in their case, I hope they face endless misfortunes. As for me, I moved out of the apartment I shared with Thomas and began living with Mom. Spending time with Mom has been enriching. Surprisingly, I feel refreshed despite the recent breakup. All thanks to Mom, who fiercely protected me. Will I ever love someone again? If I do find someone in the future, I hope they are someone who can make Mom proud.
A housekeeper who doesn't even cook is grounds for divorce, right?
Benjamin, my husband, punched me in the stomach. I don't think he put much force into it. But that's where my precious baby is.
Hey! Stop it!
I was so surprised by Benjamin's unexpected behavior that I overreacted. Seeing this, Benjamin let out a cheerful laugh.
If you don't like it, just make lunch already. See, even the kid is saying, "Poor daddy, starving because of mommy." Okay, I get it. Just stop. Just don't hit my stomach.
I screamed almost like a shriek, and finally, Benjamin stopped his hand.
I'm tired. Just do as you're told from the start. Make it quickly, right now.
Satisfied with his own words, Benjamin looked up with content. And then, he froze as he looked at the computer screen in front of him. What? Somehow, I got off the chair, kept Benjamin at bay with scissors nearby, and said,
"This time, I won't let you make excuses." Well, not that you'll need to.
This has to be a lie. I won't let him get away with excuses this time. I'll expose his true nature for sure. My name is Evelyn, I'm 29. I work at an electronics manufacturer, but I'm currently on maternity leave, so I'm almost like a housewife. I say almost because there's a reason. I do some chores and participate in irregular remote meetings. That's the only thing I insist on. The reason is, I handed over the project I was involved in to my junior when I got pregnant. I wanted to know the progress, so I insisted on participating. But I hardly ever speak up, it's more like I'm just observing. Still, I was happy to participate and know how the project is progressing. But that's just working for free. It's a waste of time, you should quit. The one grumbling with dissatisfaction is my husband, Benjamin. He's 36, 7 years my senior. Originally, he was my boss at work. Benjamin, competent at his job, was always relied upon by those around him. Furthermore, I was struck by his kindness and guidance, and before I knew it, I was drawn to him. It was considered lucky to have married someone like Benjamin, And many envied us, but after we got married, he changed. Don't say things like that. My job is just doing odd jobs and attending meetings, you know? Sometimes, I'm just observing. That's a waste of time. If you have time like that, why don't you clean the room? I've noticed dust accumulating under the furniture lately. Benjamin pointed at the gap between the TV stand and the floor. That spot can't be cleaned without crouching down. Now in my last month of pregnancy, it's utterly impossible to crouch with this belly, making it hard to breathe just from walking. So, indeed, I've neglected cleaning in some areas. I do what I can, but I'm sorry. Normally, a wife's parents would come over to help with the housework at a time like this. But you don't have that, do you? Benjamin said this with a sigh. My heart ached. My parents died in an accident 10 years ago. It's been 10 years, but it still feels like just yesterday. Yet, Benjamin carelessly belittles me for not having parents like now. And I always ended up apologizing. I'm sorry for causing you trouble. Then, Benjamin would always smile with satisfaction. You're lucky to have married such a generous man like me. I never thought I'd marry an ordinary woman with no special qualities like you, Evelyn. This is how Benjamin satisfies his ego. It's a daily repetition of sarcasm and boasting. He wasn't like this before we got married. Maybe it's common for both men and women to change after marriage. Sadly, Benjamin has a very good public image, so when I complain to others, they don't believe me. I get irrelevant responses like, "You're just being spoiled," or "It's nice to have someone so reliable." I could have endured it if it were just as everyone says. I could just ignore it. But lately, I've been at my wit's end with Benjamin returning from work. When the doorbell rings from evening to night, that's the signal of his return. Even if I was in the middle of housework, I would stop everything and rush to the entrance. And while watching the door open, I'd hope, please, let Benjamin be in a good mood today. When he's in a good mood, it's just reports of the company's doing well or I landed a contract. The problem is when he's in a bad mood.
Arg, so annoying. Acting all high and mighty just because they're a client. Those outdated fools.
As soon as he enters the entrance, Benjamin is stomping around, angry. We welcome back. He throws his bag at me and heads to the shower, cursing me under his breath. This whole routine terrified me. When this continued day after day, I even considered divorce. I first talked to a coworker, but they didn't believe me. Benjamin? That's hard to believe. You're exaggerating. Look, you're pregnant and probably just tired, right? Maybe you need a change of scenery? It was as if they were saying I was the one being unreasonable. Sadly, I understand where my coworker is coming from. The Benjamin we worked with was perfect in everyone's eyes. Always smiling, gentle in his words and actions, and calm. It's hard to believe that he could change like this. I wouldn't have believed it myself in the past. Maybe it's just temporary. Perhaps he's just irritable because he's busy and tired. I decided to think positively. It's not like he's physically harmed me. Though my body tenses up when he throws things or yells, he's never hurt me. I'm sure someday Benjamin will be as kind as before. That's what I hoped and prayed. No one believes that Benjamin could change like this. But there was one person who might believe me. That was my uncle, Daniel. My grandparents live far away, and my parents have passed away. After the accident, I was left alone, but I had one relative I could rely on. That was my father's brother, Daniel. He had moved to New York before my father, so by chance, he lived close to our family. Daniel looks, honestly, intimidating. He's 6 feet 3 inches tall and well-built, so just standing there can be imposing. But on the inside, he's incredibly kind and wonderful. When I was young, Daniel would often play with me in place of my busy parents. Back then, I thought Daniel was unemployed. He spent that much time with me. I think he doted on me like I was his own daughter.
Actually, I was the first one to ever hold Evelyn, you know.
Daniel and my father would often joke and compete like that. So, after my parents passed away, it was Daniel who supported me. He took care of most of the arrangements while I was in a daze. When I couldn't even bring myself to eat, he'd make tasteless oatmeal or pasta that would fall off the fork with just a touch. It wasn't delicious, but I remember I ended up eating it anyway. It was also Daniel who found me a job when I dropped out of college after my parents' accident. I feel bad for using your connections. To my hesitation, Daniel kindly said, "Don't get it wrong, it's just an introduction. How you works from here on out is up to Evelyn. I won't know anything about it. What I couldn't repay to my parents, I want to repay to Daniel." That was my goal. I had endured living with Benjamin, who only spewed verbal abuse, but one day, Benjamin finally raised his hand to me. It might not have been intentional at first. I knew I had to be careful that day because Benjamin's mood was worse than usual. But I was also feeling unwell and didn't have the energy to deal with it. So, when Benjamin complained about everything, the dinner menu, my face, my expression, the housework, I accidentally muttered under my breath, "Ah, enough, so annoying." The moment those words left my mouth, I could feel the room freeze over. This is bad, I've done it now. I need to apologize quickly. I started to apologize immediately, but it was too late. A magazine flew right past my face. Benjamin, in his anger, threw it at me.
Hey! What did you just say? Did you just tell me, who's tired from work, that I'm annoying? Hey!
From there on, it was useless to say anything. Benjamin started throwing whatever was nearby, one after another. Fortunately, it seemed he still had some reason, as he only threw light or thin items. Having done it once, the barrier to doing it again must have lowered. From that day, even though he wasn't using much force, Benjamin started to raise his hand over trivial matters. Scared, I thought of consulting Daniel. Actually, Daniel works at the same company as us. He introduced me to this company because he could be more accommodating if it was his own company. Benjamin never mentioned Daniel, so he probably doesn't know we work for the same company. But I had introduced him before, so he was aware of Daniel as part of my family. I was sure Daniel would believe me. I had something like a conviction about it. But, unfortunately, Daniel was on an overseas business trip at the time. Concerned for me, "I can listen over the phone if that's okay," Daniel said. For a moment, I thought of leaning on him, but knowing Daniel, if he found out about my situation, he might fly back. That wouldn't be fair to the company or Daniel. Reluctantly, I decided to wait for Daniel's return. I tried consulting coworkers and friends, but no one believed me, as expected. Moreover, somehow, the fact that I was talking about Benjamin reached him. Benjamin then said, "I meant it as a form of affection." He apparently said this with a lonely smile. Everyone completely believed this excuse. As a result, I was treated as just a woman with an overactive imagination. One day, while I was working in the room as usual, Benjamin came in. Today is unusually a work-from-home day for Benjamin as well. I knew in advance because he told me. "I'm hungry, where's lunch?" Benjamin said, almost like he was throwing the words at me. "Oh, just wait a bit. I'm working right now."
Huh?
Benjamin let out an annoyed tone. With that voice, I immediately understood. Here it comes. The usual thing. I braced myself in an instant, preparing mentally. Usually, it's an arm or a leg. And then, Benjamin, with an unpleasant smirk, approached me.
A housekeeper who doesn't even cook is grounds for divorce, right?
Benjamin punched me in the stomach. I don't think he put much force into it. But that's where my precious baby is.
Hey! Stop it!
I was so surprised by Benjamin's unexpected behavior that I overreacted. He had never laid a hand on my stomach before, no matter what. I curled up in the chair, trying to protect my belly with my arms, encircling it. Tears welled up in my eyes from fear and anxiety. Seeing this, Benjamin let out a cheerful laugh.
If you don't like it, just make lunch already. See, even the kid is saying, "Poor daddy, starving because of mommy." Ouch! Please! Please, stop!
How can he do such terrible things? I'm his wife, and the child in this belly is his. I couldn't understand at all.
I don't want to do this either, you know? But what can I do? It's because you won't make lunch. Right? Poor daddy, huh?
Even as he spoke, Benjamin's hand didn't stop. He kept hitting my stomach over and over, relentlessly. Resisting was difficult while sitting in the chair. I could only focus on defending myself.
Okay, I get it. Just stop. Just don't hit the stomach.
Screaming almost like a shriek, Benjamin finally stopped his hand.
I'm tired. Just do as you're told from the start. Make it quickly, right now.
Satisfied with his own words, Benjamin looked up contentedly. And then, he froze as he looked at the computer screen in front of him. What? Somehow, I got off the chair, kept Benjamin at bay with scissors nearby, and said, "This time, I won't let you make excuses." Well, not that you'll need to. This has to be a lie. The one to respond to the flustered Benjamin, turning pale, was someone on the computer.
I wish it were a lie. I never thought you could be such a despicable person.
The one holding his head on the screen was the manager. Other employees were also looking at this with faces of disbelief.
No, that's not true. I didn't hear anything. That's right. I was framed. I was deceived.
Trying to ingratiate himself, Benjamin clung to the computer.
That sounds terrible. I told you, didn't I? I'm working, so wait a bit. I haven't lied or deceived anyone. So, then you should have clearly said you were in a remote meeting. Then I would have.
Benjamin started to say, but caught himself. He was about to say, then I wouldn't have hit you. Benjamin, who cares so much about his public image and how he's perceived by society. The cunning and sly Benjamin wouldn't even utter a harsh word at the company, let alone raise a hand. That's why no one believed me when I complained. I felt a sense of despair at that time. But then I thought a bit. If they wouldn't believe me, I needed proof. Knowing there was a remote meeting while Benjamin was working from home, I had secretly plotted to expose his true face. I just hadn't expected him to aim for my stomach. That was a lapse in judgment on my part.
Anyway, everyone at the company is a witness now. You can't talk your way out of this. I want a divorce. I don't want to see your face ever again. But, Evelyn, I can't without you.
As Benjamin let out a pitiful voice, the doorbell chimed. Trying to head there, Benjamin blocked my way, trying to stop me.
Wait! We're in the middle of talking. Is it okay to raise your voice like that? The computer is still connected, you know?
ah. Distracted and flustered, Benjamin let me slip by him towards the entrance. But just before I could get away, he caught up and grabbed my arm.
Stop! Let go! This spot is out of view from the computer, perfect. Hey, we need to come up with an excuse together. Should we say it was a prank? That's the safest bet. It'll be more believable coming from you, so you tell everyone. No way! I'm tired of watching your face, being worked like a slave, and living in fear.
Help me. Just as I screamed inside, I heard a noise from the entrance, and then the door burst open, and someone entered. Seeing who it was, I collapsed on the spot in relief.
Are you okay, Evelyn? Daniel.
It seems Daniel was secretly participating in that meeting too. He must have rushed over immediately after seeing the video. It was fortunate that the entrance door was unlocked. Are you hurt? How's your stomach? Daniel rushed to my side and pulled me away from Benjamin as if rescuing me. Then, shielding me with his own body from Benjamin, he hid me behind his back. Thanks to Daniel's broad back, I couldn't see Benjamin anymore. Likely, Benjamin couldn't see me either.
Daniel, Evelyn's uncle, right? Long time no see.
Peeking around Daniel's back, I saw Benjamin trying to force a smile and nodding in greeting. Daniel straightened up and looked down at Benjamin. Being considerably taller, Daniel made Benjamin look very small and frail. Evelyn, can you stand? You should rest on that sofa over there. Ignoring Benjamin, Daniel supported me and moved to the sofa. Sitting down provided some relief. Benjamin tried to approach me, but Daniel stopped him with a threatening look. After you rest a bit, let's go to the hospital just to be safe.
That's an overreaction. It was just a little nudge. That's part of affection, a couple's touch.
How could anyone think that way about what happened?
You be quiet. We'll have a thorough discussion once we've confirmed that Evelyn and the baby are safe. Don't worry, the meeting was recorded.
So you saw that because you're with the same company. Benjamin made a fist in frustration and fell silent.
Evelyn, you married quite the man.
I felt sorry facing Daniel's stern look and sigh, unable to say anything. The hospital visit confirmed that the baby was fine. Relieved, I felt my whole body relax. Then, Daniel, Benjamin, and I decided to head to the company. Daniel said, "Think of the baby. Leave the rest to me." But this was a matter between Benjamin and me. Even if it's Daniel, I couldn't leave everything to him. We could have postponed it to another day, but knowing Benjamin, the more time he had, the more likely he was to come up with something. Now in the last month of pregnancy, with labor possibly starting at any time, it was best to resolve this quickly. I am a mother. I have a duty to ensure this child can be born into a safe environment. Upon arriving at the company, we were immediately led to a separate room. Daniel must have contacted them in advance. The employees present at the meeting must have also given their testimonies. In the large conference room were the meeting members, Benjamin, Daniel, and me. I took my bag from Daniel and pulled out the divorce papers. I had gotten them from the municipal office a long time ago and kept them in my bag. Benjamin looked puzzled for a moment, but then forced a troubled smile. I admit I did things that could be misunderstood. It's my fault too, so I'll accept the divorce. I have no problem with the compensation in the divorce court, and I'll pay child support. Perhaps because he was in front of everyone, Benjamin seemed unusually understanding. His acceptance made the conversation progress smoothly. However, when we reached a certain point, Benjamin froze. You want me to resign or transfer? Yes.
I plan to return to work after my maternity and parental leave are over. It wouldn't be good for either of us if you were still here. That's why. I actually want you to leave."
Benjamin stared at me intently and nodded.
"I see. But what does the company think?" "What are you trying to say?" "Not to boast, but I believe I'm a valuable asset to the company. I have good performance. No issues with interpersonal relationships. Plus, I have a wide network among peers and clients."
Indeed, the outwardly competent Benjamin could be considered an ace at the company. He was what you'd call a key player. He was so well regarded that it was said it was only a matter of time before he became an executive.
On the other hand, you, for better or worse, is just an ordinary female employee.
Oh, I'm not trying to belittle you.
Just stating the facts.
I understand.
Moreover, as a mother of a young child, inevitably you'll take more leaves. You'll probably end up inconveniencing the company, coworkers, everyone.
This was something I had considered since becoming pregnant. Without parents, I had no one to rely on. In any situation, I had to manage on my own. While it's an unavoidable circumstance, to the company, I might be seen as a troublesome employee. I couldn't help but understand what Benjamin was trying to say. He implied that the company would choose him, the valuable ace, over me, who brought the inconvenience of potential risks, even though he had caused this issue.
See? So the best thing is to forget all this and get along again. That's the best for the baby too.
No, I can't do that.
What?
Benjamin looked utterly astounded.
Just endure and accept it again? That's ridiculous. Nothing would change. Do you expect me to endure endless days of sarcasm, living like I'm in hell?
At my words, employees whispered among themselves, looking puzzledly at Benjamin. Especially the female employees glared at him coldly.
Well, sure, we had our disagreements as a couple. But it goes both ways. That's both ways? The balance is off. I was always the one being hurt.
Benjamin seemed unable to hide his agitation against my counterattack.
You're like a completely different person. What happened to you, Evelyn?
That's right. I've been enduring until now. I had hoped that maybe you would change someday. But I never thought you'd lay a hand on our child.
The onlookers' gazes sharpened even more. Benjamin forced an awkward smile, his forehead beading with sweat.
Evelyn, that's because... Getting back to the point, shall we leave it to the company to decide who should leave?
Oh, yeah. Perhaps convinced he would be chosen.
Then, I'll go ahead and submit these divorce papers now.
From this moment, you and I are strangers.
Wait, Evelyn, I mean... Goodbye.
I wanted to get away from him as quickly as possible. With Daniel by my side, I submitted the divorce papers. Despite Benjamin's strange confidence, it was certain he would be the one to leave. Although it felt slightly underhanded, Daniel is, after all, the CEO of our company. With the CEO on my side, the outcome was clear.
It does feel a bit unfair, though.
Muttering this, Daniel furrowed his brows sternly.
What's wrong with that? The fault lies with that man. To think he doesn't even remember the face of his own company's CEO and yet dares to call himself a valuable asset. The nerve!
I vented a little to Daniel. Daniel was red in the face with anger. Thanks to our talk, I felt much lighter. So, on the drive back from the city hall, we talked eagerly about the arrival of my child. I had no more worries. Now, I could give birth in peace. A few days later, I gave birth safely. It was a beautiful baby girl. Daniel came to the birth as well, shedding tears like he was welcoming his own grandchild. From Benjamin.
I want to meet her too.
I received a message. Has he forgotten what he did before our child was born?
It's too dangerous for you to meet her.
I replied, keeping a safe distance. While I'd prefer to cut ties completely, I left WhatsApp open as an escape route to avoid provoking him. He sends updates almost daily. After being fired, he managed to find employment in the same industry. However, due to the nature of the industry, rumors about Benjamin had already spread.
Everyone's cold to me, and I can't find a girlfriend,
he lamented. According to a coworker,
I'll never meet someone as good as Evelyn again.
Benjamin reportedly regretted his actions. If that were true, he shouldn't have done what he did. Currently, Daniel and I are discussing names for the child. We're struggling to come up with a good one. Moreover, Daniel was already head over heels.
I'm not letting this child get married off,
showing an incredible amount of adoration. Though my parents couldn't see their grandchild, I'm glad Daniel is happy. Someday, when my child starts to speak, I want her to call Daniel Grandpa. I'm sure he'll cry, despite his imposing frame. I'm looking forward to it.